All right, let's jump right into it. If you've been looking for an animated explanation video explaining the topic vitamin M, a story of memory and mischief of Stid IX book Kaveri in English, well, you are in the exact right place. We're diving into a brilliantly funny and honestly pretty insightful story that masterfully explores family dynamics, the tricks our memories play on us, and a highly secret and highly disastrous detective mission. If you've ever dealt with the shifting, sometimes awkward relationships in a family as grandparents get older, or, if you just love a good laugh about epic family misunderstandings, you're absolutely going to love the layers hidden in this text. So let's break down the humor, the plot twists, and the really important, deeper message hidden right beneath the surface. So, right at the center of our story, we've got a classic family problem, totally captured by Ravi's mother, Vidya. She is just incredibly worried about her 75-year-old father's failing memory, wishing there was some sort of magical pill, a vitamin M, as she calls it, to just magically fix it all. She spends pretty much all her time meticulously sorting his green, red, and orange tablets, and nervously recounting how, just last month, Grandpa accidentally took a double dose of his meds. To make matters worse, he apparently even got lost trying to find his way back home from a routine evening walk. Because of these little slip-ups, Vidya is absolutely 100% convinced that her father is rapidly becoming helpless and needs her constant 24/7 supervision. But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Notice the stark contrast here. While Vidya speaks to him in this overly loud, exaggerated voice, exactly as if he's a toddler who can't quite comprehend the world around him, Grandpa's actual reality is entirely different. He isn't some frail, helpless kid. The man is a retired lawyer with a razor-sharp mind for logic and strategy. In fact, he successfully ran his entire household, doing all the complex budgeting, the cooking, the shopping, for 10 whole years after his wife passed away. So when Vidya talks down to him, he literally winces. He just feels completely patronized, and he's deeply frustrated that his decades of total independence are suddenly being overwritten by his daughter's anxiety. Now that tension, it finally bubbles over when Grandpa absolutely refuses to be kept a prisoner in what he fiercely calls their poky little flat in a horrible crowded city. He despises being cooped up. He wants his Tamil newspaper and he wants to go out and get it himself, breathing in the actual fresh air. But because Vidya is terrified for his safety out in the chaotic streets, she strictly forbids him from going out alone. She even leaves young Ravi in charge as a sort of makeshift warden. So when Grandpa defiantly steps into the elevator anyway, completely ignoring her orders, Ravi is forced into action. He's reluctant, for sure, but feeling the heavy weight of his mother's panic, Ravi launches a secret, undercover mission to follow his grandfather, promising himself he'll make sure the old man comes to no harm. Okay, let's trace Ravi's hilarious trail here, acting as basically the world's worst detective. It's a literal obstacle course of embarrassment. Grandpa sets off jauntily, completely unbothered by the world, while Ravi follows at what he desperately hopes is a safe distance. The pursuit turns into this epic city-wide trek. They move frantically from the children's park over to a busy tea stall, past a local barber shop, and finally wind up at a completely chaotic bus stop. And Ravi's very first disaster happens right out of the gate at the children's park. To avoid being seen by Grandpa, who, by the way, is happily distracted buying a paper cone of peanuts, Ravi crouches down low behind a bush trimmed in the shape of an elephant. I mean, you can't make this up. But his cover is blown immediately. A small child walks right up to him, stares him dead in the eye, and super loudly asks if he's playing hide-and-seek. When a panicking Ravi tries to frantically shush the kid, a shadow falls over him, and this loud voice booms, "How dare you shoo my child?" It's the boy's angry mother, wielding an umbrella like an actual medieval weapon. Ravi literally has to scramble out of the park on all fours, ducking behind concrete benches just to escape the umbrella-wielding wrath. This next part is a brilliant piece of physical comedy, and it really highlights the massive difference between what Grandpa is supposed to be doing and what he is actually up to. After fleeing the park, Ravi follows him to a busy tea stall, gets chased away from a banyan tree by a very persistent lady selling plastic combs, and finally ducks behind a shiny silver car to spy on his target. And what does he see? Well, while Vidya has Grandpa on the strict, bland, doctor-approved diet, the old man happily ignores every single medical restriction. He casually devours a heavily sugared cup of tea, wolfs down 2 whole bananas, and tops the whole thing off with a massive ice cream cone. Ravi is just watching this from behind the car, sweating profusely, knowing full well his mother would absolutely faint if she witnessed Grandpa's rebellious little snack time. But the physical comedy peaks at the very next stop. Grandpa casually zigzags through the dangerous roaring traffic, giving poor Ravi a near heart attack, and heads toward a barbershop.
Now, since Grandpa is as bald as a table tennis ball, Ravi thinks this is highly suspicious and clearly requires a much closer look. Summoning his inner James Bond, Ravi dramatically looks left and right, sprints across the street, and ducks into the shop right next door to the barber to maintain his cover. Unfortunately for our master detective, he is just confidently barged straight into a ladies' hairdressing salon. He is immediately grabbed and thrown right out onto the street amidst a volley of very loud, very angry feminine shrieks.
So eventually, Grandpa casually boards a bus, and miraculously, they both actually make it back to the apartment safely. Ravi is completely exhausted, hot, and intensely bothered by the day's traumatic events. But finding Grandpa safe at home makes us pause. We really have to ask ourselves, was Grandpa really losing his grip? Was his memory actually as bad as his overprotective daughter thought? Or was he simply tired of being micromanaged and deciding to just live life on his own terms for an afternoon?
Well, the evidence actually points in the exact opposite direction, and Grandpa drops a massive twist on the family. First off, actually, scratch that. Let's look at earlier in the story. We learned that Grandpa's memory for complex chess strategies is incredible. He remembers the exact opening moves made by Karpov and easily recalls Bobby Fischer's historic, super intricate match against Spassky. But the real reveal happens right now. Grandpa reaches into his bag and casually hands Ravi a brand new book. And what kind of book is it? A detective story. It is Grandpa's subtle, hilarious, and just brilliant way of saying, "Yeah, I knew you were following me the entire time, you terrible spy." And then he hands out presents to Ravi, his mother, and his father. Why is he giving them gifts? Because it is his own birthday.
And that leads to this glorious, absolute mic drop moment. In a perfect, lawyer-like comeback, Grandpa looks directly at his daughter. Vidya, the mother who was so utterly obsessed with her father's failing memory, had actually circled the date in bright red ink on the family calendar at the start of the year, and then completely, totally forgot her own father's birthday. As he calmly hands over her gift, Grandpa coolly states, "My daughter needs some vitamin M, I think, for her memory." You can just picture the absolute, undeniable embarrassment flushing Vidya's face dark red.
Now, as funny as this story is, it's actually a brilliant setup by the explainer to prompt a serious critical reflection on something called ageism. Ageism is basically showing bias based on age. In this specific case, treating highly capable independent elders like they are basically helpless toddlers whose opinions and freedoms can be completely disregarded. Vidya loved her father, absolutely, no doubt about it, but her severe anxiety completely blinded her to his actual capabilities. She stripped away his dignity by constantly ordering him around, speaking to him loudly and slowly, and assuming he couldn't manage his own life, when in reality, the guy was still sharp as a tack. So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. How can we ensure the safety and well-being of the elderly members of our families without taking away their freedom, their agency, and most importantly, their dignity? It is a really delicate, deeply important balance between care and control. As you go about your day, think about your own relationships. Consider who in your life might just need a little less management and maybe a little more respect. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.